Okay, guys, let's continue on with 3.4. And you already know you already learned how we're gonna you already learned how to solve the slope, how the linear equation works, how the parallel and perpendicular of the equation. Now let's look at the slope intercept form. So early on, we learned the standard format for the slope, which is ax plus by is equal to c. That's your standard formula. But now we're going to learn how we're going to use the slope intercept form, and then how we're going to solve it to the slope intercept form, and how we're going to graph that from the slope and intercept. And then we're going to determine if that line is going to be parallel or perpendicular or neither. And then we can also want to learn how we're going to write the equation of the line. We're going to use the slope intercept form. So let's get to the first one. So early on, we learned the standard formula, which is ax plus by is equal to c. Now that when you have the slope intercept form, so the slope intercept form is going to give you y equal to mx plus b. So the m is the slope of the point 0, b, and is the y-intercept. So here, let's look at the first one. For each equation, they want you to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So if you are told to find what the slope and y-intercept for this kind of slope-intercept formula, and at the very beginning, you know the y is equal to mx plus b, and let me draw a little bit picture here. So as you can see, and one thing you have to remember, the y-intercept formula is equal to y equal to mx plus b. So you're gonna now that you have this slope-intercept formula, now you can see the m is exactly like the x term, the first term 3, and so you know the m is 3. So the slope is equal to 3, and the y-intercept is equal to when b equal to 1, and for this case, because you have a plus, and here you have a minus 1, so your y-intercept is 0, negative 1. So 0, negative 1. So so your slope is equal to 3. Your y-intercept is equal to 0, negative 1. So for this case, I can see the slope is negative 2.7, and the y-intercept is 0, 5. And because it's a plus, so I would call this 0, 5. For this case, and because you don't see that constant, you don't see the plus 5, now you can imagine that this is plus 0, and therefore the slope is equal to 4, and the y-intercept is 0, 0, because the first number is 0, and the y-intercept is happen to be 0, therefore it's 0, 0. I'm gonna clear that up, and here we have scale practice, and you can pause that video and try to solve it, and then we can go over that during our Q&A session. So here, given the equation of the line, if you are given this kind of a formula, this is your standard formula. Now you're gonna have to rewrite that to the slope-intercept form before you can determine what the slope and the y-intercept is. It will be a lot easier to find that slope and y-intercept as soon as you convert that standard formula into the slope-intercept formula. So for that, you have now the way you would change it to the y-intercept is you're gonna have to set that equal to 5x plus 6. You move that negative 5x, to the right-hand side. So simply add 5x to both sides, and you have a negative 2y is equal to 5x plus 6. Divide both sides with negative 2, and your y is equal to 5x divided by negative 2 plus 6 over negative 2. And then you can simplify that to negative 5 over 2x minus 3. Now that you have that slope-intercept form, now that you know how to convert that from the standard formula to the y-intercept form, now it's a lot easier for you to find out what the slope is. So for this case, you can see the slope is equal to -5/2, and your intercept point is 0, -3. So now that you have the equation, you can just quickly determine that the slope is equal to -5/2, and your y-intercept is 0, -3. So here's another good practice, and you can pause that video and solve that problem. And this problem is going to be your quiz number 1. So your quiz number 1 is 2x minus 3y equals 0. They want you to find what the x-intercept, what's the y-intercept, and then you would graph them. And now this is your quiz number 2. And if you are given 2x minus 6y equal to -3, they want you to write that in the slope-intercept form. So write that as y equal to mx plus b. And then you would identify that the slope, and also identify what the y-intercept is. So that's your quiz number 2. When you finish that, put them onto paper, and then you would submit that online to get that 1 hour credit. So now that you know how to convert that from your standard formula into your slope-intercept formula, now we have to know how we're going to graph them. So let's say you already have that the intercept form that we solved early on, and we're going to use a slope, we're going to use a y-intercept, and then we're going to have to graph them. So at the very beginning, I know that y-intercept is equal to 0, -3, and your slope is equal to -5/2. And the best way to do is to rewrite that slope to this format, so that you know you're going to go down or go up or go to your right or go to your left. So for your numerator, anything when you see the positive value, you know it's going to be along the y-axis, but it's going to be going up. But for any number that's negative number, you know it's going to go down. So either go up or down, depends very much on the side. So the same thing, the denominator, plus minus is very much depend on your x direction. So that means for plus, you're going to move it to your right. For the negative, you're going to move it to your left. So here we can just do that. And if you are given the point, so I'm going to start with the y-intercept, and I already know that the y-intercept is equal to 0, -3. I'm going to start from that point. From that slope, I know that we have -5. That means I'm going to go down 5 units, and then go to my right 2 units. Go down 5 units, and then go to my right 2 units. So to make another the blue dots. Now with that 2 dots, you can connect and extend that line, and that's how you graph that with using the slope and y-intercept. It will be a lot easier to use this slope and y-intercept. It will be a lot quicker, rather than trying to put them onto a table format and then solve it. Because when you deal with all this fraction, it's so much difficult to put them onto the table. I would just quickly put them onto an even number, put them onto the graph, and then graph them this method. Okay, here's another graph, the equation using the slope and y-intercept, the way to graph them. And then again, you have this y-intercept form. Find out what the slope is, find out what the y-intercept is, and then you're just going to graph them. So graph the equation of the line y equal to 4x by using the slope and the y-intercept. So the line can be written as y equal to 4x plus 0, and therefore you can plot the y-intercept at 0, 0. And because your slope is equal to 4, and you can rewrite that slope to equal to 4/1. The reason why I want to make it this kind of format is because this way I know Am I going to go up or down? From the numerator, I can tell if it's going up or going down and how many units going up or down. So your denominator is going to your right or going to your left. So with that 1, you're going to your right or going to your left. It's very much depend on your denominator 1. So if it's positive, you're going to your right. If it's positive 4, you're going up 4 units. So from here, you already knew that your y-intercept is equal to 0 because as you can see, you start from 0. You look at the equation. You don't see that 0, the y-intercept, the point. So you know it's going to be 0, and you know that slope is 4 units going up, and then 1 unit going to your right. So 4 units going up, 1 unit going to your right, and then make a second point. And at that point, you can just connect this point, extend the line to get that graph. Okay, here is to graph the equation. Use that format, and do not use the table. Use the table format because the table format is harder to do. You would just do this format, a regular. Use that y-intercept format. Find out where your y-intercept point is, and try to rewrite that slope to know either you want to go up or down, or go to your right or go to your left. So with that slope, you can see you're going to go down 1 unit and then go to your right 4 unit. Go down 1 unit, go to your right 4 unit. And then you can just connect 2 points to graph that equation. Okay, now let's determine either the line are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So in order to determine that, I'm just gonna have to find out what is the slope for the first equation and what is the slope for the second equation. If they have the same slope, that means they must be parallel. If they have opposite and reciprocal to the first slope, then you know they must be perpendicular. If it's none of this, the same slope or opposite and reciprocal, you know it's going to be neither. So from this problem, I can see the slope is equal to 3, and the second slope is also equal to 3. Therefore, they have the same slope, and they must be parallel. So I'm going to do the same thing by looking at that. 3 over 2, and then you have 2 over 3, and I can see they're not opposite and reciprocal. They're just reciprocal, but it's not opposite. If that's the case, then you can just tell them that's not parallel, that's not perpendicular, and therefore the line is neither. It's not parallel nor the perpendicular, so it's neither. So here we have 2 problems. So this is going to be your quiz number 3. So your quiz number 3 is to determine what is your is that parallel, perpendicular, or neither, based on the slope that you see. So you're gonna see that the first one is, when you see the first one, you know the slope is not gonna be the same. And what happens if it's not the same? Do they have the same slope or not the same slope? And what kind of equation are they? So you can solve it. This is your quiz number 3. So far we have 3 quizzes. So you're gonna have to finish at 3 quizzes. And I think I'm gonna give you 2 more quizzes, and then that will be it for that video to get that 1 hour credit. So here, and when you don't get, to the point when the equation is not in the y-intercept form, then you're gonna have to solve it to the y-intercept form. So the first equation, as you can see, is not to the y-intercept form. So I'm gonna have to rewrite them to the y-intercept form, which is y equal to 1 over 3x plus 3. So for the second equation, I'll do the same thing, minus 3x to both sides. Now you can see you have you converted from the standard format into the y-intercept format. And from here, I can see what the slope is. what the slope are. So you have the first slope for that line 1 is 1/3. The slope 2 for the line 2 is equal to -3. Obviously, it's opposite and reciprocal for the slope. If it's opposite and reciprocal for the slope, you know must be perpendicular. So here, same thing, and in order to determine if the slope is parallel, perpendicular, or neither, I'm going to have to put them into the standard, the y-intercept format. So the first equation, y equal to 2, and it must be vertical. So the second equation is y equal to 4, they must be horizontal. Therefore, they are perpendicular, one horizontal, one vertical, they must be perpendicular. So yeah, so this is gonna be, you can pause that video and then you can, do that at home. Okay, so writing an equation of line using the slope-intercept form. So to write that equation, so one thing just to refresh everybody's memory is that your slope-intercept form has to be in y equal to mx plus b. So write the equation of the line if it's given the slope, given the y-intercept. The way to write that into y-intercept form is begin with y equal to mx plus b, and then you will substitute the slope 2/3x, and then you have a b equal to 8, and then from here, and you're done. So that's your slope-intercept form. So okay, here, and that's for you to practice. You can just pause that video, and then you can just solve it, and we can discuss it during our Q&A session. So again, they want you to write the equation passing through the point and in the slope-intercept form. So again, your slope-intercept form is y equal to mx plus b, and your m equal to 2, and your b equal to find out what the b is, and because you have the point that is not exactly right on the y-axis, so you're gonna have to find out what the b is. So to find out what the b is, I'm going to substitute that point into the equation and then solve the b. And the b equal to 7. Therefore, your equation, your slope-intercept form for that equation is y equal to 2x plus 7. So here is a similar practice, and review that, and then use the same principle, and then find out what's the equation for that for this situation. And again, your equation has to be in the y-intercept form, so you need that y equal to mx plus b. With that, that is done with session 3.4, and let's move on to video 3.5. We'll see you in a bit.